These next instances aren't just regular knockouts, these are 20 of the most insane UFC knockouts that's completely shocked the whole world.
Is brought to you by Modelo. One of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see!
Number 1, Max Holloway vs Justin Gaethje. In MMA, you're sometimes the hammer and sometimes the nail, and Gaethje found it out the hard way when he fought Max Holloway. Gaethje and Holloway's blockbuster BMF title fight at UFC 300 was a gift for the fight fans, with both warriors pouring everything into it. But Holloway was on another level as he outstriked Gaethje throughout the fight, and by the 5th round, it was clear that he was leading the scorecards, and most fighters in his position would try to survive to a decision. But being the BMF he is, Holloway refused to coast to victory and instead pointed to the center, daring Gaethje into a wild brawl for the last 10 seconds of the fight. And with just 1 second left on the clock, Gaethje was knocked out cold, courtesy of Holloway's winging right hand. Number 2, Justin Gaethje vs Dustin Poirier. Despite being one of the best in the game, Justin Gaethje doesn't always get the respect he deserves, and it was clear going into his rematch against Dustin Poirier at UFC 291, where he was listed as the underdog. In their first bout, Poirier defeated Gaethje in the 4th round by TKO after a solid war up until that point, but the rematch was about to be a different story. Gaethje came in with a more tactical approach, and despite landing fewer strikes, Gaethje delivered the one that mattered most as he unloaded a perfectly disguised head kick that knocked Poirier out cold just a minute into the 2nd round. Number 3, Conor McGregor vs Jose Aldo. Ups and downs are a part of the fight game, and Conor McGregor has ridden the wildest rollercoaster of them all, soaring to the highest highs and crashing to the lowest of lows. Bursting into the UFC in 2013, it took McGregor just 2 years to stamp his mark as the top contender for Jose Aldo's featherweight title after gaining 6 wins in a row. His lethal combination of trash talk and knockout power didn't just turn him into a mega star, it crowned him as the ultimate villain.
Technical question actually. How you plan to neutralize the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? By KOing him stiff. Oh, there is a reason why the belt is on that side of the table. There's only one reason that belt is on that side of the table, is because he hasn't faced me yet.
The true Mac magic, however, happened inside the octagon, where McGregor bounced in and out of range to force Aldo into overextending. Once the Brazilian pushed forward, McGregor quickly backed off and countered with a crisp left hook, dropping Aldo like a sack of potatoes and ending the fight in just 13 seconds.
Smiling. Oh! He slapped him! Conor McGregor is the new UFC featherweight champion of the world!
Number 4, Sean O'Malley vs Aljamain Sterling. For years, Sean O'Malley was brushed off as just a cheap McGregor clone, but in his bantamweight title fight against Aljamain Sterling at UFC 292, he silenced the doubters by proving that he was the real deal. In the lead up to their clash, many believed Sugar Sean would get swallowed by Aljo's grappling prowess, but O'Malley flipped the script completely, shutting down Sterling's takedowns and frustrating the champ into making a fatal mistake. Early in round 2, Sean pounced on an overextended Sterling, landing a clean counter right hook that sent the champ tumbling. O'Malley finished the job with ruthless ground and pound, capturing the title and proving he's truly world class.
Early round 2, Sterling on it.
Number 5, Francis Ngannou vs Alistair Overeem. Former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou may have lost a bit of his sheen following his knockout loss to Anthony Joshua in boxing, but he's still known as one of the most terrifying forces in MMA, who's defeated many titans of the sport, including Alistair Overeem at UFC 218, where despite being one of the division's elite strikers, the Dutchman clearly didn't want to trade blows with the Predator. As the fight kicked off, Overeem rushed in, throwing a punch while attempting a takedown. Ngannou defended effortlessly, leading to a clinch before the two separated. Less than 2 minutes into the fight, Ngannou unleashed a massive left uppercut that shut the Dutchman's lights out.
Matchup with Ngannou! Oh! Goes the ream! Francis Ngannou has arrived!
Number 6, Michael Bisping versus Luke Rockhold. For much of his career, Michael Bisping was seen as a gatekeeper in the UFC, a role that seemed destined to define him until he grabbed a golden opportunity to face middleweight champ Luke Rockhold on short notice at UFC 199. Rockhold had already handed Bisping a brutal defeat 2 years prior, and the American entered the cage brimming with confidence. But Bisping too was riding higher on cockiness, buoyed by the support of his fans, which turned out to be the spark he needed. As the fight began, Bisping utilized effective lateral movement to avoid getting tangled in grappling exchanges. After a few minutes of striking back and forth, he unleashed a huge left hook that sent Rockhold dancing. Moments later, Bisping finished the job, knocking the champion out cold and etching his name in the history books forever.
He heard him back. And again, Michael Bisping is the new UFC middleweight champion of the world.
Number 7, Holm versus Ronda Rousey. Heading into UFC 195 in 2015, Ronda Rousey was an absolute force of nature, with her elite judo and signature armbar making quick work of every challenger, and Holm was expected to be another victim on Rousey's road to dominance in their bantamweight title fight. Many believed the fight would follow Ronda's typical script: drag Holm down, snap her arm, and walk out with gold still in hand. But Holm was about to upset the established order. From the start, Holm lit Rousey up with sharp punches, keeping her at bay and shutting down her takedown attempts. By the end of round 1, Rousey was visibly tired, facing adversity she had never encountered before. In the second round, Holm continued to batter her before ending the champ's misery with a crushing head kick. Rousey dropped to the mat, and a couple of hammer fists later, Holm was the new champ.
She's hurt. Looking to finish. Holly Holm is the new UFC bantamweight champion of the world.
Number 8, Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Michael Chandler's UFC run has been nothing short of a thrill ride. He kicked things off with a knockout, followed by barn burners against the division's best. But his victory over Tony Ferguson at UFC 274 is without a doubt the highlight of his UFC stint so far. The first round of the fight was a nightmare for Chandler, as he got rocked and even got sliced up with elbows from the bottom. But in the second round, Chandler came charging in with one of the most brutal front kicks in MMA history to send El Kukui to the dark lands.
Tony laid there for like 4 hours. I was like, oh shit, we just witnessed the first murder.
Number 9, Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. For more than a decade, Ben Askren strutted around, proclaiming himself the best welterweight on the planet, and for decent reason. An Olympian and a 2-promotion champion, he remained undefeated outside of the UFC. But with all that success came a mountain of overconfidence that led to his downfall, and that too against his blood rival Jorge Masvidal at UFC 236, where before the fans could even grab their drinks and settle in, Masvidal shocked the world with a brutal knee strike just 5 seconds into the fight, earning himself the fastest knockout in UFC history.
The fight clock is brought to you by McGregor.
Askren was out before he knew it, yet Masvidal decided to add in a couple of punches that, when he was asked about them, claimed were
super necessary.
Number 10, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal's knockout of Askren was the second of his 3 stoppage wins in 2019. He had beaten Darren Till prior to that and went on to beat Nate Diaz in their BMF title fight to secure a short notice title fight against Kamaru Usman at UFC 251, where he lost by a decision. The rematch took place about a year later at UFC 261, following months of trash talking, with Masvidal claiming how he'd take Usman's head off with a full camp.
If Kamaru takes a fight against me on 6-day notice with 20 pounds of cut, I finish him in the first or second round. That's a great fighter. He doesn't go to decision with me, and he knows that for a team. That's why he was hugging me for dear life.
Inside the cage, Masvidal started strong, firing leg kicks and outstriking Usman early, even defending a takedown after attempting a knee. But in round 2, it all went downhill. Usman feinted a takedown, then unleashed a devastating right hand that sent Masvidal crashing to the canvas. A few hammer fists sealed the deal, leaving no doubt who the welterweight king was that night.
And of all the superlatives,
Number 11, Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. Dubbed by Joe Rogan as the greatest head kick knockout in MMA history, Leon Edwards' finish at UFC 278 against Kamaru Usman was nothing short of legendary. Heading into the welterweight title fight, Usman was a dominant force, seeking his 6th consecutive title defense and 16th straight win in the UFC, and things seemed to be moving in the right direction for the Nigerian as he dominated Edwards in the first 3 rounds. By the end of round 4, the champion was cruising. In the 5th round, Edwards picked up the pace, fending off Usman's takedowns and looking for that one chance, which came with less than a minute remaining as Edwards threw a feint and followed it up with a head kick so perfect, it completely froze Usman in his tracks. The champion crumpled to the canvas and his reign was over.
the cloth from which he is cut. I mean, that is a dejected... No way!
Oh my God!
Undisputed welterweight champ!
Number 12, Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. There's an old saying that no matter how good you are, there's always someone better lurking around the corner. That's the reality for Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira. Their rivalry spans 4 intense encounters, with Pereira coming out on top twice in kickboxing before stopping Adesanya at UFC 281 to claim the middleweight belt. 3 losses to the same opponent can shatter anyone's confidence, but Izzy is cut from a different cloth. At UFC 287, he stepped into the octagon ready to rewrite his story. In the first round, Pereira dictated the pace, pushing Adesanya against the cage and appearing to have the upper hand. But little did Pereira know he was walking right into a trap. As the second round unfolded, Pereira continued to press forward. However, as the Brazilian began to unleash his arsenal, Adesanya timed his kill shots perfectly, delivering 2 brutal counters that sent Pereira crashing to the canvas like a house of cards.
Again, Pereira so dangerous.
Oh! Counter right from Adesanya! Pereira down and out! Order restored! Adesanya has finally done it!
It was a fitting conclusion to their rivalry, at least in Izzy's eyes. Number 13, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Eye. After dropping down to flyweight in 2018, Valentina Shevchenko quickly established her reign of terror by dominating Joanna Jędrzejczyk to win the 125-pound belt. In her first title defense, Shevchenko faced her most outspoken foe to date in the form of Jessica Evil Eye at UFC 238. The pre-fight build-up was heated, with Eye talking way more trash than she could ever back up, and Shevchenko made sure she paid a hefty price in the octagon. By the end of the first round, it was clear Eye was out of her depth, as Shevchenko systematically dismantled her, and in round 2, Bullets delivered a sniper-like headshot to score one of the scariest knockouts in women's MMA history. Number 14, Joaquin Buckley versus Impa Kasanganay. In 2020, Joaquin Buckley delivered a knockout that shook the internet and turned him into an overnight sensation. At UFC Fight Night in October 2020, Buckley faced Impa Kasanganay in a fight that had its fair share of back and forth action until Buckley unleashed a technique straight out of a video game. It all started when Buckley threw a left high kick that Kasanganay caught, but instead of clearing the leg, Kasanganay held on for a little too long, and that's when Buckley made a slight adjustment, spinning his body and landing a devastating back kick to Kasanganay's face. The impact was immediate as Kasanganay stood frozen for a moment before crashing to the canvas, knocked out cold.
Even on total strikes at the moment.
Number 15, Corey Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar. How many times have we seen legends hang on too long, suffering blows that they didn't need to take? Frankie Edgar was almost one of those cautionary tales, and his big slump started with a crushing loss to Corey Sandhagen. The fights barely lasted, so there's not much to dissect. They circled for about 20 seconds as Edgar hunted for a takedown, but the moment the legend level changed, Sandhagen pulled a trick out of his magic hat and unleashed a powerful flying knee. It was lights out for Edgar in the blink of an eye.
Body's moving, feet's moving. Oh my goodness! Flying knee! Perfect! Corey Sandhagen!
Number 16, Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka. Since his UFC debut in 2021, Alex Pereira has become a 2-division champion and done nothing but produce top-tier highlights, and his UFC 303 light heavyweight title fight against Yuri Prochazka was no exception to that. On fight night, Pereira was dominating the #1 contender from the get-go, and he dropped Prochazka with his signature left hook right at the buzzer of the first round. With no time to recover, Pereira finished the job within the first 5 seconds of the second round with a perfectly placed switch kick. Number 17, Anthony Pettis versus Stephen Thompson. After a rocky stint in the UFC featherweight and lightweight divisions from 2015 to 2018, Anthony Pettis decided to rise to the welterweight ranks, making his debut against former 2-time title challenger Stephen Thompson at UFC Fight Night in March 2019. Thompson was the more seasoned welterweight as well as a masterful striker, so he naturally entered the fight as the favorite and dominated from the start with his distance control and varied striking arsenal to keep Pettis' back consistently against the cage. Pettis changed his misfortune into a blessing, however. With his back pressed against the fence, Pettis launched himself forward with a perfect Superman punch that caught Thompson completely off guard, handing him his first and only career loss by knockout.
A big right hand and Wonderboy's out! Anthony Showtime Pettis!
Number 18, Ilia Topuria versus Alex Volkanovski. Ilia Topuria's ascent through their featherweight ranks has been nothing short of sensational. The Georgian powerhouse bulldozed through both rising stars and seasoned veterans undefeated to earn a title shot against Alex Volkanovski at UFC 298. Topuria was quick to show his confidence pre-fight, labeling Volk an old guy, igniting a war of words that set the tone for their showdown. Topuria's bold predictions and brash demeanor had many believing he was just another cocky contender, ready for a humbling, but it wasn't to be. When the octagon door closed, Topuria stepped up, going toe-to-toe with Volk in a high-stakes first round, which Volk won thanks to a ton of body kicks. In round 2, Topuria came out guns blazing, pushing Volk against the cage and knocking him out cold with his killer right hand to become the world champion. Number 19, Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. Now we have to go back to Alex Pereira because just 2 months before his devastating knockout of Yuri Prochazka at UFC 303, he faced Jamahal Hill at UFC 300, where Hill was extremely cocky heading into the fight, but Pereira was about to demonstrate once again why he is truly on another level. On fight night, Hill refused to engage for a few minutes into the first round, but soon threw a body kick that landed near Pereira's groin area. Referee Herb Dean went in to stop the fight, to which Pereira quickly brushed him off, indicating he was fine, before proceeding to knock Hill down with his notorious left hook just a few seconds later, before finishing the job with ruthless ground and pound. Number 20, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. And last on today's list is one of the most exciting and recent knockouts that absolutely shocked the whole UFC world. We're talking about Ilia Topuria doing something that no one has ever done before. At UFC 308, Ilia Topuria was defending his featherweight title against Max Holloway in what everyone thought would be a tough matchup. When the cage door closed, the fight was an even boxing match from the get-go, with Ilia even attempting to challenge Max in the middle right when the first round started. By round 3, both fighters had landed some solid shots on each other, but it was Ilia who was about to seal the deal, because just 1 minute into the third round, Ilia landed his notorious heavy right hand on Max, stumbling him. He then followed up with more pressure and landed a massive left hook, knocking Max out cold for the first time in his career.
Be careful that he doesn't punch himself out.
If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out times where cocky UFC fighters got destroyed and humbled by their opponents.